Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Brent Cook. I'm the product manager for Summon and also for CDI. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the 2020 Summon roadmap. We have a variety of things we're going to cover. That includes some highlights of what the current state is of the 2020 Summon roadmap. Talk some about what you're going to see here, or what you're currently seeing in the preview environment for the February release, and talk a little bit about CDI and what you will be getting with the launch of that in the next week. I'll also go through some highlights of what to expect for the second, third, and fourth quarter releases for this year, and I'll touch on a few events and webinars we have coming up here in the not too distant future. But first, let's talk a little bit about the 2020 roadmap. As hopefully you saw earlier this week, the voting for the new enhancement request system, or NERS, from Illuna was completed. Those were posted to the listserv earlier this week. I'm in the process of reviewing those, estimating the size and scope of those, finalizing the requirements. Once that's done, we'll be able to give you a complete list of what is on the 2020 roadmap. Not everything that was voted on, the top things voted, will necessarily make it in, but we're taking a look at that right now. So the timing and feature set may shift a little bit between now and when that process is done. Any updates and final details for the 2020 roadmap will be published in the Ex Libris Knowledge Center. So as I mentioned, right now, the February release is already live in preview, and that includes the launch of CDI. That started on the 22nd, and will go live in production on February 5th. And I'll go over some of the details of what you are hopefully seeing out there in the preview environment right now. We also have 3 other quarterly releases scheduled for this year. We'll follow a similar pattern to what we did last year. First Wednesday of every month, there will be a release. There will be maintenance releases on the ones where we don't have quarterly releases. And for those maintenance releases, we won't do release notes or things like that, unless there's something that's customer facing or something that you might see appear in your back end. Otherwise, those are mainly just around doing regular tasks that are required, or customer updates. We'll also have the quarterly releases. We'll have a preview environment available 2 weeks prior to that going into production. And those also fall on the first Wednesday of the month for the quarter they're in. The one exception is the May release. That will be out on May 13th. That first week in May, we will hopefully all be together in Illuna in LA. The preview is available for that on April 29th. Our next quarterly release, the third quarter, will be released on August 5th into production, with a preview available 2 weeks prior to that on July 22nd. And then the last one of the year, the fourth quarter one, will be on November 4th. Preview is available on October 21st. And as a reminder, the preview environment is available at all times. It's just the date here is when it'll be updated with that next release, and will reflect what you see there. Each of the releases, we are taking a look at both product and idea exchange changes and improvements to put into the product. I'll go over some of what those should be for this year. As I mentioned, there's the new enhancement request system, or NERS enhancements, that we'll be taking a look at. We're doing a particular push on accessibility, and have some work we're doing on that in this quarter, as well as the second and third quarter. I'll talk some more about that in detail in a moment. We have some changes to our recommendation systems, particularly Topic Explorer and Database Recommender, that we'll be including in the releases. And also we'll continue to improve and add to our analytics systems, Oracle Business Intelligence, or OBI. So first, let's talk a little bit about what you can see currently in the preview environment, the February 2020 release, which includes the introduction of CDI and a few new features. So hopefully you know about CDI, or the Central Discovery Index, by now, but just in case, I want to take a moment to talk about it. CDI is here to address a few challenges that we're seeing in discovery. There's a continued increase in available material. I'll show you some numbers later, but the growth of the index continues to grow strongly with all the new material that's put out, and also more diverse material types as well. More audio and video content, for example, and more formats, new formats for these things. We're also seeing user expectations change. There's definitely an influence of people's usage of the device. Their daily interaction with social media and other consumer platforms certainly sets user expectations and forms user perception on how they expect your site to work. And there's also expectations from faculty for their users to be able to access more diverse materials in a quick fashion. We continue to operate our single search box that pulls together things like publisher and aggregator content, digital repositories, research outputs and data, open access content, library catalog information, AV content, and special collections. All of this is contained within that index. So how do we search that entire set of data, that huge collection of metadata and materials with a single search box and successfully connect people to what they want to find? Part of that is through building connections and intelligent services on top of those data points. As part of CDI, we're introducing a graph database where we're going to start to build where we're already building formal and informal relationships using things like subject terms, author names, research data, citations. Like with Citation Trail, you can currently track where something has been cited or the articles it cites. All of these things can be used to build together and create a new context for search and to create new discovery paths to make it easier for people to find what they're looking for and to discover things they weren't sure they were looking for or they didn't even know they were looking for. That's the promise of the Central Discovery Index, or CDI. We're using it to empower all of our Ex Libris' higher ed solutions. That includes comprehensive coverage and material types. We have high quality metadata, and we have a complex and sophisticated deduplication process to create a merged record. We're building smart exploration services on top of it. Like I mentioned before, Citation Trail, BX Recommender, related items, things like that are already using this back-end intelligence, data intelligence, to build services. And we will continue to do that as we go forward. And then finally, we've made sure that the platform is scalable and modern. We've upgraded both the software and the hardware to make it more powerful, more resilient, and respond more quickly. And one of the things that really excites me about CDI is that it's not just a dream or something that we're planning on doing in the future. It's alive right now. New implementations for Primo and Summon will be rolled out on CDI. The first existing Primo customers are live with CDI as well, with the remainder planned to move to CDI by the end of this year. And then finally, Summon customers, right now, you can go out and test it out in the preview environment. And on February 5th, when the new release is live in production, you will be using CDI. And again, for the most part, as we move to CDI, the functionality should remain the same as it has previously. There should be no changes in how you manage things on the back end. The front end functionality that already exists there should continue to behave in the same way. There are a few changes, but these are all new features that we're putting into the system. So live now in the preview, you can see some of the new facets that we have out there. We've added an author or creator facet and a collection facet. For both of those, you will need to activate those to see them. We've also added the ability to sort by title or author. We've made match and merge improvements. In particular with match and merge, we've done things like normalized punctuation, such as the different types of quotation marks that you might see out there. We've done better handling of variations in spelling, like color with or without the U. We've done a lot to improve matching and merge and add in content types that previously were excluded from match and merge. And we've also done normalization and some cleanup around rules regarding subtitles. Sometimes extra spaces or stray punctuation might make enough difference between a subtitle in one record and another to prevent them from merging. We've loosened the restrictions on that and been a little more sophisticated in how we take a look at that, so that the ultimate result is a much better, improved merge process with hopefully a great reduction in duplications. We've also added in the ability to search for both authors and co-creators by ORCIDs. I'll talk a little bit about that more in a moment. And there's a lot more content out there from content providers and institutional repositories. And then one other change that you will be seeing as part of Summon on CDI is improved performance, as I mentioned before. Now, you do see some of this already within the preview environment. However, the preview environment is a smaller mirror system of what we have in production. So it won't be until you go into production that you'll see the full benefit for the performance and for the hardware and the upgrade to Solar 7. As I mentioned previously, we have a few new facets added as part of CDI. You can now activate an author facet. Previously, the author facet was conditional. It only showed up for books and ebooks. Now it's available for all content types. and the collection database. Both of these you'll need to go in and activate. As you can see on the screen there, you go into the default setting tab within the admin console for Summon, go to the facets selection, and then there you can just simply drag various facets from enable to disabled or vice versa, depending on how you want them set up. You'll also get the ability to sort results by title or author. Currently, you can sort results by relevance, which is the default. You can also do it by date. For when CDI goes live, again, title or author will appear, and these come automatically. You won't need to go in and turn those on. And then finally, I want to highlight something that will be coming in the March maintenance release. That will be a recently added items facet that will basically show you the items that have been added to the index within a certain time period. As I mentioned before, we've improved how you can use ORCIDs to search. So if we've expanded that to include both authors and contributors. Previously, ORCID IDs only applied to the authors and not the contributors as well. We've also had a big push to get more ORCIDs into the index because of course, a feature like this is dependent on how much information is in the index and how much you can retrieve by using it. We started last year pushing for this. We went up from 1.2 million ORCIDs in the index in September, so now we have 8.4 million ORCIDs, and we're continuing to push for that. It is supported as a field query search, so if you want to do this type of search, you want to type into the search box ORCID : and then the ORCID ID itself, and that should return some good results. I also mentioned we added a lot of providers and resources to the index as we move to CDI. We have gone from 200 million open access records at the beginning of last year to 225 million are now available in the index. That includes 61 new open access institutional repositories that are available. We've also added 38 new providers, and in the past year, we've increased the overall records in the index from 3.4 billion to over 3.9 billion. So an increase of over 500 million records in the index in the last year. And again, this is all available as part of CDI. You'll be able to see that all take place and be in place for your production environment on next Wednesday, February 5th. So next I want to talk a little bit about what we have planned for the second, third, and fourth quarter of the year. Some of the specifics around what will appear in each release will be defined as we finalize that narrative building and the sizing of the other pieces. But I want to talk a little bit about what we do have planned and what we do want to include in these. That includes some product improvements like the continuation of linked data. End of last year, we did a lot of work on the back end to make sure that the data was in the index and was connected in such a way that we could use it to build out site maps to improve indexing by search engines. This year we're working on a landing page for that and creating management tools on the back end to generate those pages. I'll show you some more information on that in just a moment. We also plan to continue improvements on unpaywall. In Q4 of last year, we were able to add in the ability to add unpaywall links to results within your result set. However, at that time, it didn't support facets. So this year, we will be working on adding facet support so that unpaywall is connected to the open access facet as well as others. We're also looking at adding custom citation styles to Summon and doing some chat widget improvements, including WhatsApp integration. From the idea exchange, the top ideas there that we're going to address in the 2020 roadmap will be the ability to separate books and ebooks when searching, taking a look at the back end and adding date last updated to database details, make best bets work a little bit more with tags and show up when they're in a larger set of keywords and not just an exact match. Better display of 5xx fields, and then adding a custom JavaScript or CSS field to simplify customization of the user interface. As I mentioned in the May release, we are working on that linked data landing page. This is a page that is built mainly to, it needs to be usable by a human, and this, of course, is the detail page here that we're seeing right now. But we also need to structure the data so that it's easily crawlable by web crawlers and indexable by search engines like Google. So this is a draft right now. The screen grab on the right-hand side shows you the complete details of everything that might appear on this page. And again, you'll have the ability to set a query or a specific set of pages that you'd like to have show up. The backend tool will help generate these and make them available in a way that makes it easy for crawlers like Google's web crawler to come through and index this. We're also working on improving accessibility for Summon in 2020. We're currently doing an internal audit to ensure WCAG 2.1 compliance and reviewing any outstanding customer recommendations that you have on how we can do a better job for accessibility. In Q2, we are working with a third party to do an audit for compliance. And this, as well as your recommendations, I think are really important and critical for accessibility. We do ongoing testing with each release. We make sure that any new features that we add in or any existing features meet whatever tests we've had set up in the past to ensure accessibility. And while that captures a lot, there's a lot to be said to having someone who is external to the organization, such as one of your users or a third party like this, to provide feedback, because they capture some real world scenarios and actually use the technology in ways that we may not catch within our testing suite. So it's important for us to do this work. Once we get the outputs of that and the internal audit, we will be folding in accessibility improvements changes recommended by those processes in the May and August release. If any are particularly large, we may do some in the fourth quarter release. My expectation is we'll be able to address those in the second and third quarter releases. And then, as I mentioned, the new enhancement request system, or NERS, voting just finished up. We're in the process of estimating and assigning points to each of these, and I will work with Eluna and Igloo to take this list, pare it down to what's the final set that we'd like to see happen in 2020, and then these are guaranteed, whatever comes out of this list, these are guaranteed to be developed in the 2020 list. And the other features that we will develop will be in some ways related to and based on those as well. I've also got some great feedback from the Topic Explorer and Database Recommender focus groups. We're continuing to work on both those recommender systems and improve them for both Summon and Primo. Our initial target will be documenting what exists, so doing a better job of describing how we manage bias in Topic Explorer, how we address it when it comes up. Also, better documentation of how we calculate relevance so we can understand why those matches are happening. And then work on improved activation process for Database Recommender, particularly how you can curate that list, rank what the priority of and things like that. When we first built out Database Recommender, we made it available for only a small subset of databases, and that was when the tool was built. Since then, we've opened it up to all databases, and this makes for a rich source of thousands of databases you can pull from, but it also means it's a little more challenging to manage those using our existing tools. So we'll be taking a look at how we can improve that process for you. And then that task force, we're also working on reviewing the user experience and plan to see what we can discover around doing usability tests and things like that, and reviewing reports of bias and relevance to drive features for the second half of the year. So taking a look at how we can do a better job of addressing bias in Topic Explorer, particularly what are some management tools we might add in, and then improved user interface for Topic Explorer. Particularly better display on smaller screens, some smaller laptops, tablets, and smartphones. Topic Explorer can take over the entire screen and make it difficult to interact with all the content there. So we're going to take a look at how those things can interact more gracefully together. And then finally, we'll be doing continued improvements on analytics and how we use Oracle Business Intelligence, or OBI. That includes adding IP address reporting, taking the facet report and improving it so that you can see both include and exclude broken out. Now they're all reported together. The ability to track advanced searches separately, providing better access to reports, so making it so that you don't have to have a full login to the backend system of Summon in order to access those reports, and taking a look at some fixes that we need to do, make popular searches available by week, and do some improvements around the session usage report. And finally, on the roadmap, I'd like to point out that the roadmap isn't everything that will happen in 2020. This captures our high-level initiatives. We do maintain room in the development queue for the year to be able to address specific customer requirements, regional needs that may not be something that is a concern for the entire customer base, and other contingencies, other ideas that you have. In fact, last year, Unpaywall was not originally on the roadmap. That was something we brought in as we had room in development to address it. So please keep those ideas coming. Please visit the Idea Exchange and make sure you vote and contribute ideas. I just saw today someone had posted a new idea there, so please go check out what's there. Once we complete the roadmap process and we have those NERS pieces finalized, those are from the Idea Exchange, so I will mark those as planned and you'll get those votes back and be able to apply those. So please go out to the Idea Exchange and update that. I check it monthly and I use that to feed the development process when we do have room to add more things. And also direct feedback is another great way as well. I go out and visit a lot of sites. I try to make it to a lot of conferences during the year, and hopefully I'm available via email. Please let me know what you're thinking. Your input is important, and it's what really drives the development of our product. And speaking of ways that you can interact, we have a couple of in-person events coming up and some webinars. In March, I'll be in Austin, Texas for ERNL. If you're there, please let me know. I would love the chance to talk to you, hear about what's going well with Summon for you, hear about what we can do to improve, and just generally get your input. I'll also be at Luna and Developers Day in Los Angeles this year at the beginning of May. Hopefully we'll see you there. And then finally, we have a webinar coming up next Wednesday on February 5th. It's a customer session with Steve Brown from University of Colorado Boulder and James Day from Embry-Riddle University. They'll be presenting about integration and interoperability with other products. So hopefully you can come to that. There is a URL at the bottom that you can go and register for that. We'll also be sure to include the links and any communications after the webinar. And that brings me to the end of my prepared comments and slides. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for your ongoing contribution and support to the project.